So welcome everyone. It's great to have you today at our new counselors session for Counsellors seminar. This is part of a series of sessions that we are doing for counselors. So I'll introduce our Associate Registrar and Director of Student Recruitment, Lisa Kachlik-Babi, to get us started.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much, Jelaine, for that introduction. I am so pleased to welcome you all here today. For those of you who are new to the role, or perhaps you're returning to the role, or if you just want a refresher on all things UM, we welcome you and we hope you get all the information you need to help your students throughout the year. I'm really fortunate that I work with an amazing team of professionals who are going to be supporting your students and answering questions and providing presentations throughout the fall and certainly well into the spring. And this is a list of our team right here. The student recruitment team is made up of both international and domestic recruitment officers who look after both international and domestic. So if you do have international students in your school, don't hesitate to contact the people you normally do. They'll be able to help you, obviously, with any questions. Carrie, who is our lead, Sujitra, Jelaine, Lindsay, Sarah, Nicholas, and Verna, who is currently on leave, round out our recruitment officers. And then, of course, Kyle, many of you know, who coordinate the events such as today, and Kristen, who looks after our database. So if you do have questions, feel free to email student_recruitment@umanitoba.ca anytime. I also, of course, want to introduce our colleagues at the Indigenous Recruitment Office, and Marla and Nicole are amazing and so knowledgeable about all things to do with recruitment, but also the Indigenous student supports and services here on campus. So if you do have Indigenous students in your schools that have specific questions that will relate to them, by all means, please do contact Nicole and Marla directly, and their email address is indigenous_recruitment@umanitoba.ca. So welcome to everybody. I do hope you're able to attend our session next Tuesday, which is the full counselors seminar, which will have additional important information. And with that, I want to hand it back off to Jelaine and Sarah, who will be walking you through the presentation today. Thank you so much for attending.
Thank you, Lisa. So now that you have an introduction to our team who's here to help you at any time throughout the year, we'll get started with our new counselor information session. So most of you joining us today are brand new high school counselors, which is very exciting. We know you'll do a wonderful job advising your students and helping them on their journey to university and the next phase of their life. But with that being said, there is a lot to know, especially when it comes to the UM application process, resources and tools that we have available for you and your students to help guide you through the process, and some of the sessions and opportunities to connect with us throughout the year. So we'll be going over all that information today, and the resources and links that are mentioned in this presentation are on our counselor website, which is your go-to resource for finding information for your students. We'll talk more about that in the presentation, but don't worry about needing to write everything down. We do have some easy online tools for you to use. So my name is Jelaine. As Lisa said, I'm one of our student recruitment officers on our team here to help you and your students. And I have Sarah joining me as well today, and she's a student recruitment officer on our team as well. So I'll turn the first part of this presentation over to her.
Perfect. Thank you, Jelaine. So we are going to begin today's session by briefly talking about the undergraduate program offerings here at the University of Manitoba. Next slide, please, Jelaine. Perfect. So this is a list of all the faculties, schools, and colleges here at the University of Manitoba that together offer more than 100 undergraduate programs. And there are a couple important things to note here. So first of all, within most of our faculties, there are multiple undergraduate program offerings. For example, Within our Faculty of Arts, students can pursue programs in everything from anthropology to languages to political science to history and so much more. Another great example is within our Faculty of Science, where students can pursue programs in areas like biological sciences, computer science, chemistry, physics and astronomy, mathematics and statistics, and more. The second thing to note here are the programs that have the maple leaf beside them. Many of these programs are our health sciences programs, and the maple leaf is simply to indicate that these programs require applicants to have Canadian citizenship or permanent residency status to be eligible for admission. So if you are working with any international students, this is just something to keep in mind for these programs. I will point out that we do offer 2 other health sciences programs, interdisciplinary health and nursing, which are open to international students. Next slide, please, Jolene. Perfect. So we have 2 different application routes into a faculty or program here at the University of Manitoba, including direct entry and advanced entry. So our direct entry programs are those that students can apply to right out of high school, while advanced entry programs do require 1 or more years of post-secondary level study prior to being eligible for admission. Great examples of those programs are nursing and environmental design. But for our purposes today, we will focus on direct entry programs. And you can see that many of our programs here at UM are offered via direct entry, everything from sciences to creative and design programs to the social sciences. These programs do require students to have specific high school prerequisite courses, which we will discuss a little later on this morning. Next, please, Julie. Great. So a program we do like to specifically highlight is University One, often referred to as U1, which is our most popular first-year direct entry program. University One is a program that is specific to UM and is a unique approach to the first year of university studies, giving students the opportunity to design an individualized schedule that meets the admission and first-year requirements for 1 or more target degree programs. After the first year of study in University One, students are able to apply to their undergraduate program of choice or transit directly into the Faculty of Science or the Faculty of Arts. U1 serves as the first year of any 3 or 4-year degree program here at UM. And it's really important to note that it does not add any time or cost to a student's chosen degree program. Next, please. So University One is a great program for a variety of different students. So including those that maybe say undecided about which program they want to study, where University One will really allow them to explore multiple programs and their interests and passions. Another great fit for University One are students who may be interested in a program that does require 1 or more years of university level study prior to entry, such as nursing and environmental design. So students can take that foundational year and the prerequisites for those programs in University One. Another great fit for U1 are students who are looking to work with academic advisors who specialize in that transition from high school to university and who can really help them navigate their first year. Another type of student that is a great fit for University One are students who maybe don't meet the admission requirements for another direct entry program. For example, maybe a student has not taken pre-calculus mathematics in high school and therefore does not meet the direct entry business requirements. What they could do is they could upgrade their math in University One, along with taking year one business courses to be able to apply to business via advanced entry for their second year. So all in all, University One does provide a great deal of flexibility for all different types of students, allowing for a really great first year university experience. Next slide, please. Perfect. So now we are going to just briefly discuss some of the resources that are available to you as counselors to help support your students as they plan for university. Next, please. Thank you. So up first is our viewbook. Now, many of you may have already received your 2022 print versions of the viewbook. If you have not, don't worry, they will be arriving to you shortly. We do make our viewbook available in both print and online versions, and the online viewbook is always available at umconnect.ca. So the viewbook is likely to be the resource that you will utilize the most. It is really your one-stop shop for general information, along with program, admission requirements, application, deadline, tuition fee, and scholarship information, and so much more. Pages 24 to 29 of the viewbook will likely be the pages that you have flagged and refer to most often in the viewbook, as these pages feature a list of all of our undergraduate program offerings, the admissions chart for each program, as well as a visual application timeline. Next, please. So this is a sort of snippet of the admissions chart. That is the big long foldout on page 29. So this is just a snippet of one of the faculties from that chart. And as you can see, the chart gives a great high-level overview of all of our programs offered within each faculty, along with other information like degree length and entry options. There are two additional columns, the direct entry admission requirements on the very right-hand side, as well as the recommended prerequisites, prerequisites that students should be taking in high school. So in terms of the direct entry admission requirements, these are the requirements students need to get into the direct entry program here at UM. Sort of related, but not necessarily the same, are the recommended prerequisite courses. Now, these are the courses that students should be taking in grade 12 in order to be successful in their program of choice once they have actually started and have been admitted to their direct entry program. It is critical to note that the recommended prerequisites are not always the same as the direct entry admission requirements. Again, those recommended prerequisites are the courses students need to have in order to be eligible to enroll in the first year classes of their chosen degree program. So just be mindful of that distinction between the two columns when working with students. Next slide, please. Great, so moving on, we have our 40S course and scholarship list. Now, this is a brand new and improved resource for you, and it is available through our counselor webpage. You'll notice that in the direct entry admission requirements for programs, you may see an academic course. And this list is simply a sort of comprehensive list of all those courses that can be used to fulfill those academic course requirements. The highlighted courses on this list in that light blue color indicate the courses which can be used for entrance scholarship consideration purposes. So another great resource to have as you're working with students who are in grade 12. Next slide, please. Perfect. So next we have our first year planning guide. And this is a great resource to help your students explore and plan for their options. The first year guide starts off with some general information about academic planning for university, followed by a detailed breakdown of each program that outlines required and recommended first year university courses for a specific program, links to course descriptions, and outlines those high school prerequisite courses once again that are really key for students wanting to go into a specific program to take in grade 12 to meet those course requirements. Next slide, please. So this is a sample of the first year courses for the agribusiness program. As you can see, students will take a variety of courses in their first year, everything from biology to economics, math, and agriculture. And they also have an option to build in an elective in their first year as well. Next slide, please. Just below that first year chart, you will see the recommended high school prerequisite courses for programs. So specifically for the agribusiness program, we are looking for mathematics, specifically pre-calculus, with a minimum grade of 60%, along with biology and either chemistry or physics with a minimum of 50%. So that is just a very brief glimpse at the first year planning guide. And remember, there are those detailed program breakdowns for all of our undergraduate programs in that guide for you. Next, please. Thank you. So a final resource we'd like to point out to you are our career resources that are developed by Career Services. So our career resources allow you and your students to explore programs and careers in sort of two ways. So students who may have occupations that they are interested in can use the occupations list to see what types of education and experience those careers require. Sort of on the flip side, the Career Compass allows students to explore certain degree programs offered here at and where those programs can take them and what people have gone on to do career-wise after those programs. The Career Compass also recommends different volunteering and experiential learning opportunities to get into a specific field and a year-by-year plan to be as job ready as possible at the end of the chosen program. And these resources can also, of course, be accessed via the Counsellors webpage or directly at the link on the slide. Next, please. Thank you. So just before I pass it off to Jelaine, I would just like to highlight that here at the University of Manitoba, we also do have a Student Accessibility Services Department, often referred to as SAS, that offers services like exam accommodations, assistive technology, peer mentoring, and note-taking for any students you may be working with that have a disability. So students who do want to access student accessibility services should contact the SAS office directly before applying, as well as immediately after accepting their offer of admission, so those services can be arranged and put in place for them as soon as possible. One other thing to note is that after accepting the offer of admission, students will need to complete a disability assessment form with their registered healthcare provider. And Student Accessibility Services, or SAS again, is just another service here at that is important for you as a counselor to know exists. So that is it from my end. So now I will pass it off to Jelaine.
Thanks, Sarah. So now that you know about some of the great tools and resources that we have to make your job easier and help you work with your students in telling them about our opportunities here at we'll go into some information about the application process. So throughout our application and admission process to there are some very important deadlines and points for you to keep in mind. So we'll start off with a timeline of our application process. Our applications will be going live before you know it in early October. that is when our fall applications go live every year. And we do have an application fee associated with that application as well. So that would be $100 for Canadian citizens and permanent residents, and $120 for international applicants, which would be anyone here on a study permit. Our application is all an online application, so submitted on our website directly. The deadline to do that for our direct entry programs is March 1st. You'll hear us mention March 1st a lot in this presentation. It's because it's a very important deadline for you to remember. So always keep in mind that March 1st application deadline. That is the final deadline for consideration for our direct entry programs. Both the application needs to be submitted and paid for by that date in order to be considered. There are a couple of exceptions to that, music being one of them. Music has a more involved admission process that involves an audition and a music theory test and some supplemental materials. So their deadline is earlier. It's January 15th. Whereas University One is a flexible option, as Sarah talked about. And with that comes a more flexible admission deadline. Their deadline to submit the application is August 1st. That's the final deadline for our fall term for U1. However, we do still recommend that your students apply to U1 by March 1st. But if you have a student coming to you later in the year, maybe they've missed the March 1st deadline, we do have U1 as that great option all the way until August. One more thing to note here, you may see some scholarship applications, such as our Leader of Tomorrow scholarship, which we'll talk more about in a bit, that have different deadlines. So they require students to both submit the scholarship application and the application for admission by a certain deadline. For Leader of Tomorrow, it is December 1st. So if you're working with any students who want to apply for the Leader of Tomorrow scholarship, be sure that they apply to the UM before December 1st. So as I mentioned, our application is all online. It's available at umanitoba.ca/apply now. And that website, as well as including our online application, will also include all of the information that your students should review before applying. So that includes our admission requirements, so they can see which courses they have and double check to see that they have the courses they need before applying to their program. They'll also be able to view the application deadline and the documentation deadlines for their programs right on that page before applying. And the best thing about our online application is that when students go through and fill out that application, they are actually creating an account. This account is a login for what we call the application portal. That is the student's go-to website and customized page for anything to do with admission here at UM. It will include the status of their application at any time, any missing documents. They can update their contact and personal information there, and they can even do their application in pieces if they don't want to do it all at once and they want to maybe sit down, do half of it, log back in later, and finish and submit that application. So it's great that the application is online for that. And it is a fairly straightforward application. It takes our students on average just over 10 minutes from start to finish to complete that application. So this is what the student will see when they go through to make that application portal account. One thing to note is we do ask for the email address. That's very important because that is our main method of communication with students, both in regards to their application, but also in regards to other important information to UM. And we'll continue to send them any important updates until they are a UM student. So until our school year will start for them next year. That's important to note because we really want students to be using an accessible email address. That means that it's best if it's their own personal email address Often a family shared email address is not the best option for this. Neither is their school email address. That happens every year. We'll have a student use their high school email address, and then July will come around and they no longer have access to that, and they might miss some important info. So it is important for the student to use an email address that they have access to and are checking regularly. And then we'll ask for their personal information as well, and they'll be able to create a password that they'll use to log into their portal at any time. So we have some tips for you to pass along to your students or to use if you're assisting your students in applying to One is to answer all of the questions that we ask fully and truthfully. So just make sure that students are declaring any previous high schools, if maybe they've transferred into your school recently, and any personal information that we're asking for. They'll also have the opportunity to self-declare Indigenous ancestry. That is something to encourage your students to do because it's a great opportunity to connect them to the Indigenous student community here at and as well as connecting them to some event and scholarship opportunities and more. Students can also go ahead and upload any unofficial documents that we request, which we may request for some of your students, right into the application. So it's nice and easy to do that as they're filling that out. And students will be required to include their MET number in their application. If you're not familiar with what that is, it is found in the top right-hand corner of their report cards. And that helps us link the student's application to the grades that we receive from the school. So it is important to include. We also want students to be declaring any additional coursework that they're doing, such as AP, which is Advanced Placement, and IB, which is International Baccalaureate courses, as well as any dual credit courses that they're taking. So make sure they declare the institution that they're doing the dual credit courses with. Another note, you may not see this very often, but there is a chance you'll come across a student, especially now with a lot of things going virtual, doing an independent study option or an ISO, which is basically online high school. Some students will do this to add in a supplemental course to their grade 12 year. If you have a student doing this, be sure that they declare this in the application under the education section, so they can actually list that organization or school that they're doing the course with. And they have to submit that transcript separately. We will not get any ISO courses included in our regular grade submission process. So be sure that they send that to us as well. So another thing we'll ask for in the application is the student's self-reported grades. That is basically where we will be asking the student in the application which courses they're taking in grade 12, and we'll ask them to enter their anticipated grades for those courses. So students do often stress out about this and worry about the exact number they should put for their anticipated grades. And we do just ask that they fill it out to the best of their ability. They don't need to worry too much about it. It's just an estimate for the grade they think they may receive in their courses. And this is important to do because we do use these self-reported grades to give conditional offers to select students. I'll talk more about that in a moment, but there's no need to notify us if their actual grade varies from their self-reported grade that they thought they would get. Say if a student thought they would get 81% in their pre-calculus course, but they actually got a 78%, it's okay. We will see their actual grade when we receive it. They don't need to let us know. So as I mentioned, we are able to use those self-reported grades to give what's called a conditional admission offer to select students. This is the conditional offer, and it's issued to early applicants, so applicants who apply to our select programs between October and our deadline of March 1st. And it is considered conditional because it's on the condition that the student still meets the admission requirements once the official grades are provided by the school. So basically, we can use their self-reported grades to give this offer that gives the student a good sense of whether they may be admitted to their program that they've applied to. And it will also include some scholarship information of a scholarship that they would qualify if they achieve those self-reported grades. So that's good. It also gives students something to aim for once they have this conditional offer. Then they'll know that if they can keep that up, they'll be admitted to their program and receive that scholarship. We will be issuing these conditional offers throughout the season, so from December to March. So as I mentioned, we do have that application portal that students are able to log into at any time. That's going to be the first stop if a student has a question about their application, their status of their documents, or anything to do with their admission. It's best to start with the application portal. Often that will have the information that they're looking for. We'll be updating that throughout the year, but it is important to note that it's normal for students to not hear a lot from us until the spring when we receive their grades. So they may hear from us with that conditional offer of admission, but not much else around that time. That's totally normal. So we will start to communicate with students more often once we get the grades from schools. And I would encourage any student, regardless of whether they're questioning the status of their application, to log into their application just to check on everything a couple of times throughout the year. Make sure they're not missing anything important. We will always do the update in the portal and send an email when we update the portal to notify the student that a change has been made. That is also where the status update will be posted. So the admission decision, we'll put that in the portal and send an email telling the student to log into their portal to view that. This is what it looks like. You can see here it has a lot of information. So this is the homepage that the students will see when they log in. Most importantly, it includes any documentation that we're asking for and the status of that documentation and the deadline to submit it. This is important because we really can't have students missing those documentation deadlines. And here it's really clear to see what has been received, such as the documents at the bottom there, and what has not been received. And the student does have the opportunity to upload materials if they have a document that is not yet received. I will just note it does take a little bit of time for us to update the portal once we receive a document. It's not instant, so just to let the student know it may be up to about 2 weeks for that to be reflected in the portal. You can see here that this is also where the status will be posted. So that offer of admission or the admission decision, right here in the portal, the student can click on that to view their letter of acceptance. You can also see on this page, we do have the opportunity to update application details. So if a student has changed their email address or their name or anything about their contact information, they can update that themselves in the portal. So now let's talk a bit about the grade request and submission process. This is important to know as a new counselor. We do have a process that we go through for receiving grades from schools. Another reason why that March 1st deadline that I mentioned before is so important is because it does mean that students who apply by March 1st to will have their grades sent to us from the schools and school divisions. So that means that we will be working with you or your school or division to receive those grades directly, and that the student does not need to send them on their own. So this makes life a lot easier for your students. It is one less thing for them to be worrying about and thinking about. They do need to apply by March 1st, though, to take advantage of this process. So we will be in touch with either yourself or your school or division. We do have our contact list that we will go through to request these grades from. And we will be contacting you with the list of students who've applied and asking for those grades. We'll do that in the end of March. And then we do really encourage you to submit the grades to us by mid-April. That is really important because The earlier you submit the grades, the faster that we can work on processing those grades and getting the decisions out to your students. Every year we have a few schools who send those grades quite late, and that's just more time that the student has to wait until they hear back from us. So we will be using those official grades that you send to process the admission decisions. And in mid-June, we'll contact you again to request the final grades and graduation details for your students. And we'll note that this grade request process, or our electronic grade request process, as we call it, is only available for Manitoba. So this is not available for out-of-province schools. So if you're joining us today from, say, Saskatchewan or Ontario, we would still absolutely love to have your students apply, but the process will be a bit different. We will not be asking for the grades from you. The student instead will need to request those grades to be sent on their own. So please assist any students that come to you, if you're an out-of-province counselor, in getting that sent to us. It's not automatic for out-of-province. So I've mentioned that March 1st deadline a few times already, and it's coming up even more now. We'll go over 2 scenarios for students who are applying to UM. First, we'll start off with students who have applied by March 1st. Then we'll go into what will happen for a student who has not applied by March 1st. So for example, a student that is applying to U1 later in the year. But we'll start off with those applications that are submitted by the deadline of March 1st. So submitting that application by March 1st, again, is beneficial because we will get the grades directly from the school or school division for those interim grades, which means the final first semester grades and midterm second semester grades. Those will be sent from you. And again, we'll be requesting those in late March and mid-June for the final. And these students also have the benefit of being automatically considered for our entrance scholarships. That is an advantage only available for students who apply by March 1st. So yet another reason to apply by March 1st. This means that the student does not need to submit a separate scholarship application for our entrance scholarships, and they will be automatically assessed for them. Whereas on the other hand, if you have a student who applied after March 1st, they will not be eligible for our entrance scholarships. So they are not able to receive our general entrance scholarship amounts. So really encourage your students to apply by March 1st. The student will also not have their interim transcript sent to us. So they will need to send it on their own. However, if they apply before June, we will include them in the final grade request. So they will get their final grades and graduation details sent to us automatically, but they will not get the interim. So they do still need to have the grades sent to us earlier in the year. Of course, if you have a student applying after June, so maybe July or August after the school has closed, you may have them coming to you to request that everything gets sent to us. They will need to be on their own if they apply after June. And then our admission offers will be going out to students. So these are provided on the basis of those interim grades. You'll hear us use that phrase quite a bit. Interim grades refers to the final grades from the first semester and midterm grades from the second semester. Students will receive these offers of admission in May. We do base those again off the interim grades. So if a student is applying for a competitive program, say business, for example, they will need to meet the admission requirements for any of our programs based on those interim grades. We will ask for students to accept their offer of admission by June. Accepting their offer just means that the student should go into their letter of acceptance and let us know that they will be attending UM so that we can get their student accounts created. They're able to accept that offer right in their letter. And then we will do a final check at the end of the year. So we will review those final grades in late June. The student still needs to meet the minimum eligibility for their program. As long as they do that, their offer will still stand. And then we do have our entrance scholarships. I'll talk about those briefly. As I mentioned, these are available only to students who've applied by March 1st. So again, March 1st, have your students apply by that date, very important. We do offer the entrance scholarships at the top here that students are automatically assessed for. That means there's no need to submit a separate application. Just by applying by March 1st, we will consider them for this scholarship. There are different amounts for the scholarship. It's up to $3,000. Students need to be taking eligible courses, and you can find those in the 40S approved course list that we talked about earlier in the presentation. You can see right in there which courses are eligible for scholarships and which are not. They also need to receive at least an 85% in those courses. And then we also have our largest scholarship, which is our Leader of Tomorrow and Indigenous Leader of Tomorrow scholarship. You may have students approaching you to ask for some information about applying to this. It is a huge scholarship available for students to apply to if they are a high achieving student. So if you have a student who's really exceptional, they have great grades from grade 11, they're involved in their community or their school, we would love to have them apply to this. It is worth $16,000, so $4,000 each year for 4 years. A couple of notes, it is only open to Canadian citizens. And an important note is we have a separate out of province pool. And we always need more students applying into our out of province pool for Leader of Tomorrow. We would really love for you, if you're a counselor here joining us from out of province, to push your students to apply to the Leader of Tomorrow scholarship. We really want more out of province students applying to that, as well as our local students. Lastly, we have our Chown Centennial Scholarship, which is where we will ask for some help from you in identifying students. This is worth $1,000, and it is available to every school in Manitoba and Northwestern Ontario. However, it's not automatic. This is available to what you determine to be the best all-around student graduating from your school and that meet the criteria that you've established. So you can nominate student for this scholarship. And we really encourage you to do this. Every year we have quite a few schools who don't nominate any students, and that's $1,000 that someone who may really need that money to go towards their tuition is missing out on. So please help your students out by nominating an awesome student for the Chown Centennial Scholarship. We have many more scholarships beyond this. We would love for you to watch our video on that on our Counsellor website, which is umanitoba.ca/counsellors. You can also find a link to eligibility and further details for scholarships. So to recap, I know we covered a lot of information here, but I'll go over some of those important deadlines and timelines that we talked about. Early October is when our applications will be going live. We do need students to apply by March 1st for most of our programs. And we will use those self-reported grades from the application to issue conditional offers of admission for select early applicants between December and March. March 1st is that deadline for entrance scholarship consideration and for the application for most programs. Late March is when we'll request the interim grades for Manitoba students who have applied by March 1st. However, out of province students need to submit everything on their own. Our interim documentation deadline for those students is May 1st. Final transcript deadline is July 7th. In May to June is when we will use those official grades, the interim grades, to make the decisions. We'll notify the students and they should accept their offer by June. In mid-June, we will request the final grades and graduation details from you. Lastly, we would love for you to stay in touch with us and take advantage of some other events and opportunities for you and your students to connect with us. Most notably, we have our Counsellors Seminar main event coming up next Tuesday. We would really love for you and your colleagues to join us for that. It is a 1-hour session that will have members from different teams here at the UM to tell you about important updates and give you an overview of the year ahead and what your students should be looking for. You can register for that session if you haven't done so yet at our Counsellors website. And you can also go to our Counsellors website to watch recordings of our previous sessions that were part of our Counsellors Seminar series. and our Counselor Classroom, which are our on-demand sessions that include information about our access programs, scholarship information, and more. We do have some options for your students to connect with our team. Firstly, we have our fall presentation online series. This is where we will break down everything that the student needs to know about into more manageable chunks of information. So it is a topical series. We have our focus presentations at the top there, which is essential information for any student to know. We will be offering those 3 presentations throughout the fall. And then we have some feature sessions as well. So those are some extra information for students, such as an opportunity to connect with current students and hear about their experience. We have an international student session if you have any students joining us on a study permit, financial planning, and even a parent session. So if you have that one parent or maybe more than one who has a lot of questions about please encourage them to attend that. Students can register at our website on the screen there. We do have a link to this on our Counselor website as well. Then we have our virtual open house, which is coming up on Tuesday, October 26th. This is going to have one-on-one chats with our faculties, presentations, and a lot more detailed information for students. So if they want to talk directly with someone from their faculty of interest, encourage them to come to this event. We have a lot of great programming. Students do need to register at umanitoba.ca/open house. Then we have our Counselors website, which we've referred to many times in this presentation. That's where you're going to find everything that we talked about today and more. Lots of really helpful information. If you are not sure where to find something, that would be a good place to start. It's at umanitoba.ca/counselors. Finally, we have our link newsletter. This is our update newsletter for counselors, where we will send you important information that you need to know at the time that you need to know it. So if you are not added to this, just let us know and we can get you added, but you may be receiving these throughout the year. And you can contact us at student_recruitment at any time with questions. However, we'd like to address some of the questions that have come in throughout the presentation right now. And if you have not yet asked your question, please do so now in the Q&A box on your screen. Okay, so let's see here. We do have a question that had come in. This is a good question that many of you will come across. The counselor is asking about students who took 40S courses in grade 11. So you will often see some students taking maybe a pre-calculus course or something like that in grade 11. The counselor is asking if they should still add those into their application. So yes, the student should still add those into their application. We are able to use a 40S course from grade 11 for admission as well. So please do have the student declare it. Another question here about U1. So the counselor is asking about if a student has applied to a direct entry program like business, for example, and they aren't meeting the admission requirements. Will they be moved to U1 or will they need to apply to U1? Should a student apply to U1 right off the bat along with their direct entry program? The answer to that would be that if you have a student who's applying to a direct entry option like business or engineering, agriculture, any of those faculties that Sarah talked about, and they don't end up meeting the requirements, say they just were under those, we will move their application automatically to be assessed for U1. So there's no need to submit a second application to U1. There is no need to apply to both U1 and a direct entry faculty. Rather, we would encourage a student to apply direct entry to their faculty of choice if they know that's what they want to study. However, if you have a student who really is unsure, maybe they don't think they're going to meet the admission requirements, or they aren't certain if it's what they want to study, you may want to encourage them to apply to University One. It is that great flexible option that allows them to still take those courses. So that is a good option in that case. All right, we'll take another minute, last chance to ask any additional questions you may have. Another question that we get from counselors would be about advanced placement and international baccalaureate grades. Do those need to be submitted to UM? The answer to that would be yes. The student that you are talking with is taking an AP course or an IB course, they will need to request that through the College Board or IBO, that those grades get sent to us at the end of the year for their test results. All right, it looks like that's it for us today with questions. We will be sending this session to you by email. So that will be coming to you if you'd like to share this with maybe your colleague or take a second watch. And we do have links to everything we talked about on our Counsellors website. So thank you so much for joining us. We hope to connect with you throughout the year and years. So we'll be in touch. Thank you.